That is the reaction for many people who own Bitcoin, as of course the price of Bitcoin has recently plummeted. And to make sense of that bloodbath, me and Tim Picciott will be giving you all the latest breaking news. But what is happening right now is absolutely significant, since just yesterday, 2 days in a row, Bitcoin crashed. It almost lost roughly 50% of its value. Right now, one Bitcoin is $5,468 in the making of this video, and close to $93.5 billion has been wiped off from its value. And that was just in a 24-hour span. There's other individuals saying that crypto will go as low as $1,000. There's other individuals like Edward Snowden saying that this is a great opportunity to buy. But before we get into what to do, Tim, can you explain what happened here?
Well, thanks, Luke. And right now we are looking at the fear and greed index. And I've actually never even seen it this low. We are sitting at an 8 right now. So an 8 is indicative of absolute extreme fear, extreme panic. And to me, not financial advice, never put in more money than what you're comfortable in losing. But to me, that's a very good buying opportunity, because it's always the best time to buy is when everyone wants to sell. And so we've seen this so many times, probably hundreds and hundreds of times of people saying that Bitcoin is dead. This is just another one of those times. But last year, I believe, I think we're down closer to 3,000 when we're at this level. So when we're at about a 10 on the fear and greed index, that was also right around 3,000. So what we're seeing is much, much higher lows to get to these points of extreme fear and extreme capitulation. But one of the reasons why, personally, I was on stage at the TDV Investment Summit at Acapulco February 11th, and I said on stage that I thought that during a recession, during the start of a financial crisis, that I would expect Bitcoin as a risk asset to go down 50, 60, 70, 80%. That was not met with a lot of fanfare, especially at Acapulco, but I am long-term very bullish on Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin is a risk asset, and so being a risk asset, it attracts a lot of people who might be in the penny stocks, or a lot of people who are into margin, or a lot of people who are in it just to get rich. And the people who got into it back in 2016, 17, 15, 14, they were in it because they were, hardcore libertarians, voluntarists, anarchists, people that wanted to change the system, people that had philosophical ideals about this. And then when you get people who are in it just to make a quick buck, well, a lot of those people got wrecked. And that's what we're seeing, is that all of a sudden, people are panicking. Even people from, the Bitcoin crypto, Acapulco community are texting me and saying things like, hey, should I go and sell my Bitcoin? And this is when Bitcoin is down, was around $4,000 they're asking to sell. And like, well, maybe you could sell it to me if you want to. But personally, it being a risk asset, I think that is the biggest reason. And then if we also go over to the screen here, we see, just huge amount of selling. And so obviously, anytime you get more people wanting to sell something than to buy something, then that's going to have a major effect. And so looking at the screen here, it says we're on decrypt.co. The main cause appears to be the crash of the traditional markets. U.S. stocks fell into bear market on Thursday as all major indexes fell a further 10%. This is obviously a knock-on effect from the sell-off we've seen in traditional markets, while even the so-called safe haven assets like gold have seen their values drop, eToro analyst Simon Peters said in a daily update. And as governments around the world impose drastic public restrictions to halt the spread of the virus, and financial authorities struggle to implement measures to limit the economic impact of COVID-19, investors are clearly feeling overwhelmed with the bad news, he said. And then we've got Galaxy Digital founder Mike Novogratz explained that as a result, investors have lost confidence in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was always a confidence game. That's all crypto is. And it appears global confidence in just about anything has evaporated.
Yeah. Very few insiders, were very optimistic. And many people like yourself were saying, hey, if the market crashes, this is also going to crash as well. But it wasn't really known to a lot of other people. And there also was a lot of institutional money in there. I think people forget how much money larger institutions put into Bitcoin, which a lot of people were celebrating. And I was like, well, this is directly going to tie it to the market. There's massive sell-off. And right now we're seeing a situation that is truly absolutely surprising. And I'm happy, you mentioned high risk asset, because again, ever since we started covering Bitcoin, this was even before it was in the mainstream media lexicon, we were telling people, hey, whatever you invest in this, make sure you're willing to lose it, because it's a thing that will go up 50% one day and down 50% another day. And it's always best to be cautious, always best to diversify all your assets into as many different baskets as you can. Don't put your eggs all in one basket. So moving forward, how do you see this kind of developing? Because I'm seeing this kind of coronavirus situation spiral more out of hand, and out of that, there's going to be more market reaction, more market reaction. Does that signal another more significant Bitcoin loss in your opinion, Tim?
You know, in the short term, I think it does, Luke, although, you know, not financial advice. No one has a crystal ball over here. But in the long term, I am very, very bullish on Bitcoin. We're going to have another video coming out later today that gets more into the economics of what's going on in the current financial system. But just to tease you guys, Steven Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, yesterday came out and said that the Treasury is prepared for unlimited liquidity. And so when I hear the word unlimited liquidity and we're seeing how quickly things are getting out of control, I mean, it was just a year and a half ago that the Fed was pretending that they could sell $50 billion of bonds a month. Now it's gone from selling $50 billion a month to then stimulating $50 billion a day to now $500 billion a day, which is in the repo markets. We're going to talk about that later on. And so when you go from we're going to sell $50 billion a month to now we're stimulating $500 billion a day on top of these other programs that equal about $2 trillion, it was always the reaction to the crisis, Luke, that I was worried about. It wasn't the actual crisis itself. So in a long enough time horizon, it's going to be this reaction to the crisis that I think is going to ultimately take the price of Bitcoin much, much higher. But you should be diversified, you know, should be working. You know, I am a financial advisor. I do have clients that have crypto inside their IRAs. And the main thing I really use as a gauge is that fear and greed index. And so unfortunately, everybody is going to come to me when Bitcoin's at 15, 20,000 are going to be knocking on my door. But now when it's at, you know, extreme fear levels, nobody's knocking on my door for that. They're knocking on my door for some other things that we offer. But yeah, I really think on a long enough time horizon, I think it's going to absolutely skyrocket. However, in the intermediate to short-term span, I expect it to continue to go down. We're seeing further capitulation. We're seeing people even within our own community, not to stress this again, but even if there's people in the anarcho-boko, you know, liberty type community who even us are saying, and I hate using the words like us and we, but even us are panicking, then what does that, you know, leave you for like the average regular person out there, Luke?
Exactly, and people have to understand that they need to control their emotions. And again, it's just happened so many times where you have a huge drop, people are like sell, sell, sell. Huge highs, people are wanting to buy in, and again, that's not a way to navigate the market here. Interestingly enough, though, Edward Snowden tweeted officially, quote, "This is the first time in a while I've felt like buying Bitcoin. That drop was too much panic and too little reason." There's very little reason happening right now, but I kind of agree with your kind of long-term assessment here, Tim, on what you've been saying. It's also interesting to see the Italian Red Cross launch a Bitcoin fundraiser to fight the coronavirus. So again, it's still utilized in some ways. Other people are saying the price will, drop. Other people are saying the price will go up. The one thing that is certain is that there's uncertainty, and this is why, again, from the very long time I've been saying, whether it's gold, silver, metals, currency, cash, other foreign currency that's not backed on the dollar, stocks, assets, funds, all this other stuff, whatever you do, make sure you have it all spread out, because at any time, in any moment, in this unpredictable, crazy market that we don't know what could happen next, you don't know, how to move forward. And I definitely want to heed some of the advice that you've been giving out, and I think it's pretty useful. But yeah, that's all I got to say on that topic. Anything else you want to add to Bitcoin and all the financial stuff before we get into the financial market stuff in a new video?
Yeah, the last thing I just want to point out is that, generally speaking, it is a good idea to diversify. But what we saw in 2008 is pretty much all asset classes all went down together. So for me personally, that there's some other ways to help hedge your bets. And so, I mean, what I was doing, I've been on video saying this for the past year and a half, is that I had a strategy where we were trying to basically, if the market were to go down, we would then make money on that through a put option. Do not get into options if you do not know what you're doing. If you're not an expert on this, do not try it, because it's a good way to get wrecked. But that was pretty much the only strategy that did work out. And what we saw this past week is pretty much all asset classes were going down, even gold, even silver. And so, it is disconcerting, but I think on a long enough time horizon that, diversification does work. But when you're in a panic, that's when things the whole system starts to break down. And I think we're nowhere near that breakdown system. I think this is only just the beginning, and that's a nice teaser to leave you guys for the other video that Luke and I are going to have coming up a little bit later on.
Definitely just a beginner, and it seems like almost everyone will lose something. It's just about not losing enough of just having everything in one basket. So thank you so much, Tim. I hope you guys appreciated that video. If you did, share it with your friends and family members, and stay tuned for more on Change the News channel.